Ever feel like the world's a stage where the most ruthless actors often steal the spotlight? You see them everywhere, in the cutthroat world of business, the treacherous landscape of politics, even in the seemingly ordinary corners of life. They lie, they manipulate, they bulldoze over anyone in their path, and yet they often reach the summit. Why does it feel like the game is rigged in favor of the morally bankrupt? History echoes with the rise of individuals whose morality seems questionable, to say the least. From emperors who built empires on bloodshed to CEOs who prioritize profit over people, the pattern is undeniable. But is this just a grim coincidence, or is it a fundamental truth about power itself? In a world of finite resources and relentless competition, those who hesitate, who cling to fairness, often find themselves left behind. Meanwhile, those who are willing to exploit, deceive, and dominate frequently ascend. This uncomfortable reality forces us to confront a piercing question. Is morality a weakness in the brutal game of power? To even begin to unravel this paradox, we need to journey into the mind of a philosopher who dared to challenge the very foundations of our moral beliefs, Friedrich Nietzsche. He saw power not as inherently good or evil, but as a fundamental force of life. To understand why the worst might succeed, we must first understand Nietzsche's radical perspective on power itself, and that begins with his controversial dichotomy, master morality versus slave morality. Imagine two figures locked in a struggle. One is strong, decisive, and unwavering. They seize what they desire, molding the world to their will, unburdened by the need for external approval. The other is hesitant, constantly seeking validation, hoping virtue will be rewarded. Which of these two is more likely to survive, to rule? Nietzsche argued that morality isn't a universal truth etched in stone, but a fluid creation born from the very struggles for power throughout history. He identified two fundamental moral systems, master morality and slave morality. These aren't just abstract concepts. They offer a potent lens through which to understand why those we deem ruthless often rise to prominence, while those prioritizing kindness and fairness often struggle. Master morality is the ethos of the strong, the rulers, the conquerors. Its values are rooted in strength, courage, ambition, and the will to power. To the master, good is synonymous with what elevates them, what enhances their capacity to dominate, to create, to impose their will upon the world. They don't seek external validation. They define their own worth. They embrace responsibility for their destiny and view weakness not as something to be protected, but as something to be overcome. Slave morality, conversely, is the morality of the oppressed, the powerless, those who lack the means to directly assert their will. Instead of celebrating strength, it glorifies humility, obedience, and self-sacrifice. Suffering is deemed noble, and power is often viewed with suspicion, even as inherently evil. Nietzsche saw this as a psychological adaptation, a moral system forged by those who lacked the strength to dominate, allowing them to survive in a world controlled by the strong through resentment and the inversion of master values. But here lies the uncomfortable truth. Nietzsche argued that slave morality, in its condemnation of ambition and its shaming of the pursuit of power, doesn't prevent the rise of the ruthless. In a perverse way, it enables it. While the noble-hearted hesitate, bound by their moral constraints, those who embrace a master-like approach, a relentless drive for their own ends, take control. In a world where hesitation can equal defeat, the outcome is often tragically predictable. So, does this mean we should abandon all morality and embrace a ruthless path? Or is there another way to reconcile strength and virtue? To answer that, we must delve deeper into the psychology of those who rise to power, those who refuse to be mere victims of circumstance. Picture a vast, untamed wilderness. Survival here isn't about fairness or kindness, it's about strength, adaptability, and the unwavering willingness to do what is necessary. The lion doesn't ask permission to hunt. The storm doesn't apologize for its destruction. Nature doesn't reward morality. It rewards those who can endure and dominate. Human society, beneath its veneer of laws and social contracts, still echoes this primal struggle. Those who ascend to positions of power often share a defining trait: ruthlessness. Not necessarily outright cruelty, but a profound ability to act decisively, unburdened by hesitation or guilt. This isn't an accident. It's a potential evolutionary adaptation, a mechanism that has allowed individuals and empires to seize control in a world that rarely waits for the faint of heart. Psychological research has often highlighted traits like high ambition, a low sensitivity to fear, and controversially, a reduced sense of empathy as predictors of success in competitive environments. This doesn't mean all powerful people are psychopaths, but it suggests that many possess traits that allow them to act without the emotional brakes that hold others back. History is replete with examples: leaders, entrepreneurs, conquerors who reshaped the world through decisive, often morally ambiguous actions. Hesitation is a liability. Power is taken, not given. Yet, ruthlessness alone is a precarious foundation. Those who wield power without wisdom often face spectacular downfalls. The very qualities that propel someone to the summit can become their undoing. A leader who rules solely through fear will eventually be consumed by the forces they once controlled. History is littered with tyrants who believed themselves invincible until they weren't. So, if power is often seized by the ruthless, does this condemn morality and fairness to failure? Not necessarily. But to understand why, we must challenge one of the most pervasive illusions of modern society: the belief that the world is fundamentally fair. From childhood, we're often told a comforting story that good people are rewarded and justice always prevails. But as we navigate the complexities of reality, a brutal contradiction emerges. The hardest workers aren't always the wealthiest, the most honest don't always lead, and the kindest hearts are often the most broken. This disconnect isn't a flaw in the system. In many ways, it is the system. The idea of inherent fairness can be a social construct, a narrative designed to maintain order rather than reflect a fundamental truth. Psychological research reveals the just world fallacy, our tendency to believe people get what they deserve. This belief can be dangerous, fostering passivity. If we assume goodness alone guarantees success, we risk ignoring the realities of competition, strategy, and the often uneven distribution of power. But does this mean morality is meaningless? Should we abandon all principles in the pursuit of power? Not quite. The key is to understand the game without becoming a slave to its darkest impulses. Those who suffer most are often those who believe that simply playing nice will be enough. The path forward lies in learning to balance integrity with strategic thinking, to combine kindness with strength. True fairness isn't something we passively expect, it's something we must actively create, and that often requires wielding power effectively. Nietzsche saw this struggle as a fundamental aspect of human existence. His answer wasn't to surrender to the illusion of fairness or to become mindlessly ruthless. Instead, he pointed towards something higher, a way to transcend both weakness and cruelty: the Übermensch. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast abyss. Behind you lies the world as it is, filled with injustice, limitations, and the oppressive weight of convention. Before you lies the unknown, a path only the bold dare to tread. Most will hesitate, shackled by fear and doubt, but a few will take the leap. These are the Übermenschen, individuals who rise above the masses, who forge their own path, who redefine power on their own terms. Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, or Overman, isn't about brute strength or blind domination. It's about self-overcoming. The Übermensch refuses to be a victim of circumstance, rejects imposed morality without question, and shapes their own destiny. At its heart lies the will to power, not as a drive to control others, but as an intrinsic force to create, to transform, to impose meaning upon a seemingly meaningless world. While the weak are often paralyzed by fear, the Übermensch moves forward, untethered from societal illusions. Crucially, the Übermensch isn't ruthless for the sake of cruelty. Unlike tyrants who seize power out of insecurity, their strength comes from within. They don't rely on deception or oppression because their power is self-generated, independent of external approval or fleeting success. This is why the worst people may rise to power, but they rarely achieve true transcendence. They play a temporary game of manipulation. The Übermensch plays the infinite game of building something greater than themselves. They are creators, not just takers. So, how do we navigate a world that often seems to reward the ruthless without becoming one of them? The answer lies in understanding power not as a weapon, but as a tool. It's about learning to compete in a world that doesn't wait for the kind-hearted. One of the biggest weaknesses many possess is the ingrained belief that life should be fair. It isn't. The strongest competitors accept this early on. They don't waste energy lamenting injustice. They learn the rules of the game and use them strategically. This doesn't necessitate abandoning ethics, but it demands recognizing that power is neutral and those who understand its dynamics wield it most effectively. Many stumble because they assume kindness alone will pave the way to success. But power is rarely given, it's often taken. This doesn't mean becoming cruel, but it requires developing strategic empathy, deeply understanding the motivations and potential moves of others, even those with questionable morals. It allows you to navigate deception without becoming deceptive yourself. Fear often paralyzes. The Übermensch, however, cultivates internal power, embracing discomfort, taking calculated risks, and forging their own path despite opposition. The truly successful don't wait for permission. They create opportunities where none existed. There's a crucial distinction between mindless ruthlessness and controlled ruthlessness. The former is destruction without purpose. The latter is the ability to make hard choices without hesitation when necessary. Sometimes, power requires walking away from toxic situations, making unpopular decisions, or confronting uncomfortable truths. This isn't cruelty. It's a form of strength. The key is knowing when and how to apply it. The ruthless often rise fast, but they can also fall hard because their power is often built on exploitation, not creation. The true Übermensch, however, builds, whether it's a business, an idea, a movement, or personal growth. When you create value, you become indispensable. You don't need to manipulate because your power is earned, not stolen. So, can you succeed in a world that often rewards the ruthless? Absolutely. But only if you stop playing by outdated rules, stop expecting inherent fairness, and start mastering power on your own terms. Not through the destructive path of the morally bankrupt, but through the constructive and ultimately more powerful path of self-overcoming and creation. What are your thoughts on this perspective? Do you see this dynamic play out in the world around you? Share your experiences and insights in the comments below. If this exploration of power and success has challenged your assumptions, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more thought-provoking content.